Excuse me making a little technical faux pas, but that just proves that we are human, we are normal, or that's what I'd like to think. Anyway, it's the Sutherland Report. I'm back. A lot more to follow in regard to that. Thank you very much for joining me and giving me your time once again. It's much appreciated. One of the wonderful things about doing this podcast and also in life is that you get to meet some very, very, very interesting people with some of the things that you end up getting up to. And also, what happens is you meet people that are at events that are life changing. So I'm going to bring on someone who was at an event, if I've got the date right, which was 24th of July last year in America, where a pretty appalling incident happened. And I'm going to bring on my friend Joel DeSalas. Oh my goodness me. This is appalling. Joel, I do apologize. What an absolute mess. Joel, could you please pronounce your surname? Why am I having a block on this when it's such a wonderful Italian name?
D'Alessandro.
Joel, I do apologize. Viewers, I do apologize. I will be working on my Italian lexicon.
It's all right. I'm pretty used to it.
Joel, I do apologize. Joel, thank you so much for joining me. We have a few things to talk about because there's a number of similarities in regard to certain things that have been going on my side of the pond and been going on your side of the pond. Now, I don't shout about where I am. I will leave that up to you in regard to saying where you are, etc. But Joel, thank you so much. Now, there was an incident that happened last year that you were at. And in fact, I would actually say that the photograph at the beginning, the photograph in the right-hand corner of the screen as I'm looking, was actually taken by you. So could you kindly explain where you were in regard to that photograph?
Yeah. So I was front row. That was my first time ever at a Trump rally. I had a friend who had VIP access. So I got to be front row. We got in early. And in relation to the stage, it is, I'm trying to get my theater terminology. So as he's standing there looking at the crowd, I was off to his left. So I guess that's stage right.
Yep.
Yeah. And so it's kind of at the corner. I guess another way of putting it is he's standing at 12 o'clock. I was more out at his like 10 o'clock from where he was standing. So off to the side, to the corner, it was basically right in front of where the stairs where he was exited out after it happened. So I was right up front. That was with not very much zoom. That was with a little bit of zoom on the camera on my iPhone. So it was, that's, probably looking at maybe a 60 millimeter view or whatever. So it was a little closer, but not much. I got to see that good of a shot of him there. And so, 90 plus degree day and humidity with no shade, out in the baking sun since probably 11 a.m. that day. Yeah, was a very long, a very uncomfortable day for sure. And then, a lot of fun though, a lot of great Patriots, a lot of good people. And and then I got to see him for 10 minutes. And that was right there moments before he showed the chart, which I did get a shot of the chart as well. And then we know what happened right after that.
Joe, sadly, someone died that day, a gentleman's name who I'm embarrassingly, because I have talked about him in the past, that
Corey.
Corey. That's it. And Corey actually, and you can correct me, he protected other members of the family that day, didn't he? As he threw himself upon them, which is an incredibly brave, fatherly, husbandly, incredible thing to do.
What we men
Pay
do.
with his life. Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. Joel, thank you. Thank you for actually saying that, because that is a very profound comment, because the key thing is that is what men should be doing.
It should be doing, yeah.
And that's a bit of a key issue which we may end up touching on within our society on both sides of the pond. Joel, he was then rushed off the stage. People couldn't actually believe what happened. Um, um, what what was your reaction? I mean, I should think other people have asked you this, but what was
Yeah.
your reaction as these
Yeah.
events were unfolding in front of you?
Yeah, very good question. I mean, everybody had a different reaction during those moments. It was what it initially sounded like firecrackers. I thought it was just some kids fooling around.
Right.
And so he went down. I thought, well, okay, he's just reacting like
Yeah.
somebody
Yep.
would if they think
Yep.
they are
Yep.
hearing fire,
Mm.
gunfire. I was unaware he got hit at the time, and I was there standing. It was kind of standing room only. That's actually another thing if we want to get into the uniqueness of that day. Was from the people who had been around to many Trump rallies had stated was the security was very lax, the crowd control was lax. It was not the normal run of the mill rally prior to this happening. So that's another little scoop there. So it was what normally should have been an area for VIPs and very controlled, like there was seating. You should be able to seat. There was the general public from all the way in the back rushing up to the stage. So there was not, it was very chaotic prior to it happening. So we had to stand up just to see him. And so I was standing there. He got up, and before I had a moment, when I saw the blood, before I even had really any time to figure out that he got shot, he automatically then had his fist up, doing fight. And at that point, I'm like, I wasn't scared or traumatized. I'm like, he is ready to go. And there were a lot of people screaming at that point, women, children screaming, a lot of people shocked. Nobody ran. There was no chaos in that regard. Everybody stood where they were. And the moment he did the fight, it was like the analogy I've used. I've had some interviews about this in the past. Was it was like Rocky times a million. It was like the end of Rocky times a million. Immediately when he put his fist up and said that, the entire area just roared. It was like, let's go. And then he looked over as he was getting escorted down the stairs. He looked over at us in our area, because that was like the nearest he could see. And then he looked right in basically in what felt like looking at me, going fight right in my eyes. And I was like, at that point, I was emboldened. I was like, yeah, this, I was not afraid. I wasn't shaken. I wasn't like, no, I was like, we're ready. Let's go. And then he got escorted away. So it happened very quickly. The other very surreal thing about it was immediately as he was escorted, it was like we were all told to go home, like as if nothing happened. So that was very weird too. Lack of security, lack of crowd control, no real presence of order. And then as soon as it's over, all of you can go home as if nothing happened. So that was also very odd, like no questioning of anybody, nothing like that. That's also was the other surreal part of it. You would think that, you'd be like, did you see anything? Were like questioning people, like, where, what did you notice? Or do you have any photos? I mean, I took, as I sent you some photos right from my iPhone right before I had to get down. I was standing up the whole time until, as he was getting escorted away, there was a armed National Guard or somebody. It wasn't a police. It was somebody in full like camo with a rifle in my face saying, "Get down." And then at that point, I'm like, okay, I sat down and kind of slunched down like this while watching the whole time. So, but there were people that hit the deck right away and were right on the ground the whole time and didn't see anything.
I remember the event because the other thing is there'd been also the huge concern about the fact that there was another gentleman that had, they were concerned about him because he was threatening to take a pot shot and all the rest when he was playing golf. There was this build up for this. There was the leading into this. There was the accusation that that the Biden presidency was not taking his security seriously and all of this. And there was a demand for that within the presidential candidates that were running. And of course, he was number one in regard to the Republican nomination. And before that as well, Robert Kennedy Jr., there were concerns about security for him. So that is within the atmosphere of what was going on. And I do remember over here where I was and hearing this and suddenly wanting to find out what had gone on. I always find this, I say this respectfully, particularly to these events. And when it's hard to imagine in many ways being there and then you're suddenly seeing this, but this disconnect in a way where suddenly you're seeing it through the media and there you are, Joel, how did you look back on this when you started watching the media to this? Was the way it was played out? Was there at any time when you just thought, no, that's not true, this is how people reacted, etc.? Sorry, that's a bit of a long-winded question, really.
You're fine. Well, I thought it was very intriguing that it was the it was the only time CNN was there live to broadcast a rally, which they weren't ever before. There was a rather large contingency of press pit on stage behind us all. That was surprising to me when I found that out. And again, the lack of, well, and again, I don't even recall. It was so surreal leaving because it was just like, just go home. And it was like a 4-hour wait in the parking lot, just trying to get all the cars out of there. I don't even recall too many, if any, press people trying to interview people right then and there.
Right.
I know they were with Corey and the people around the area where he got shot. I know there was press and people talking to people there. As a matter of fact, I actually know personally one of the gentlemen, Rico Elmore, who was one of the men that tried to render aid to Corey. And so for me, though, back to that question, I mean, people saw, I didn't even know, I was trying to find coverage, of so much of it was showing just the president on stage, and that was it. They really didn't show too many crowd shots. Evidently, somebody saw me crouched in my seat. I knew something was going to happen when there was a lot of AP and reporters with cameras all in front of Trump on the podium in front of us. And as soon as he got whisked away, all the cameras shifted to where we were at because they were all filming him walk away down the stairs into the car. And as soon as the car left, they all pivoted and I saw like what felt like 12 different camera lenses right on my where I was at. And I'm like, well, I'm gonna be somewhere. I'm gonna be shown somewhere. So and sure enough, some people did see on CNN and some places a live picture of me, but they never replayed it. So I thought that was interesting that there was very limited crowd reporting and coverage during the event. And in hindsight, it was probably due to, there were so many video from people coming out of where they were seeing the ladder and seeing the gunman and yelling that there's a gunman up there, and lack of response from authorities. So that does make me, has made me wonder, why there was such a lack of the mainstream media covering the people that were there. And then of course you see all these examples of that. It didn't seem like a normal event. Like, why would they not take action quicker and allowing this guy to actually get a shot off? Or in this case, how many? He got several rounds out.
Yeah. And then as things unfolded, there was that whole debate of suddenly there's a ladder against the building and all of this kind of thing. And who was this young man? And there were people it was reported, people in the crowd, and we saw that pointing to where he was lying on that building's roof, etc., etc. Why? Sorry if this seems a stupid question, but why do you think there was a lack of security, etc., and precautions, as other people that you've spoken to have been at previous Trump rallies have actually alluded to?
Yeah. I mean, obviously we're getting conspiratorial here, but I mean, honestly, it's like, well, let's look at examples in the past, like JFK. Why would a car with an open roof, convertible, drive super slow in the open with really no security? And similarly with this event, it definitely
sadly Lyndon B. Johnson isn't here to ask that question, answer that question.
I mean, it just reeks of like, let's allow something to unfold and let's see what happens. It reeks like that. I kind of feel that they probably were like, they knew he was there because of the obvious things you laid out, and a lot of the things we know, the footage, the ladder, the people letting. So I think because I have photos too of the rooftopman. Where I was at, I was on the kind of opposite side of everything, but I have photos that I didn't share with you of the other security on the roof on the other far side. So they were clearly up there, binoculars, scopes, everything. So I think they saw he was probably there, and they were probably going to say, let's see what this guy does. And he got some shots off that didn't work. And then it was at that point they're like, okay, we've got to take him out. But I wouldn't doubt that they were probably like, well, let's see if anything happens. And then, oh, it didn't happen. So we have to do what we're supposed to do. Sadly, I think that's what it is. I mean, just like the controversy over COVID and its perfect timing release right around the elections, one could say this event was also a perfect event to happen right before another general election. So, I'm just saying, makes you wonder, makes you think. It's not unheard of. I mean, hell, the CIA and all throughout history, there's, coups, stage coups, events that were allowed to happen or not happen to cause a change in an election results. I mean, come on. I mean, again, you try to talk to some people and they just don't want to hear stuff. I'm like, there's tons of historical evidence of, those kind of shenanigans.
Well, I would completely back you up in that, and also, you go back to Project Mockingbird, etc., and the invasion in regard to your press, and having assets as journalists writing this particular commentary on this, that, and the other, another event. I think with my own experience of America and extensive traveling there, you, in one sense, within the truther community, you're like front and center of this for a variety of different reasons. But we do the same over here. I just think there's a lot. There is, of course, we have denial about it, but it's taken a number of us to catch up, to realize that journalists are not who we think they are, that stories are fed, stories are controlled, and all this kind of thing, because in many ways we're focusing across the pond. But I have to then say that the sort of the Steele dossier and all the rest that came from the United Kingdom, along with a lot of other things. So if people don't think these people don't talk to each other, right, they do. And then, of course, the biggest propaganda exercise that's happened in regard to controlling the press, in regard to putting a narrative, is January the 6th, 2021, and what unfolded from there. Joel, so with the sad death of Corey and what happened at that thing, I presume that ambulances arrived, and of course, as you said, there were people trying to save his life, etc., etc. So I presume that emergency services were then let in to try and help the man and deal with that awful incident.
That's right. There were. It was that would have been basically on the other side to my left, far on the other side there. But yes, there was a assortment of various people and vehicles and chaos in and out. And at that point, we ended up leaving, going to our vehicle, just waiting to try to get out of the parking lot.
Well, there are a number of other people injured that day, Joe.
There was, there were two other men. I can't remember their names offhand. That were injured, but not fatally. So right. Total of three. Right. But the other two men did survive and were fine. I think they were both released that day or like the next day out of the hospital. So, yep. And they were I believe they were on the other side where they got hit. And that was over by my side, by the screen I was looking at with the chart. If I'm not
mistaken. Right. And of course, I think, and I do apologize if I get the congressman or senator name abbreviation muddled up here. And of course, Mr. Hawley, I think Congressman Hawley or Senator, actually, he went down there, didn't he, to actually look at this, investigate this himself. And then other people that had gone down there as well to look at this and just raise security concerns and how the events unfolded. And understandably, there was a heck of a lot of anger and disbelief about what happened around the world, that someone would take a pot shot. I'm interested, very much interested in when you've said about if your opinion, where, law enforcement, security are wondering who this shooter is, what's he going to do we let this happen, or how we let this play out, which I find unbelievable, frankly, because they should have just isolated him, asked the president to leave the stage until they'd actually dealt with this incident. But I don't think we're going to get answers to that. Have we actually got answers that you think you would be satisfied and other people would be satisfied with?
No, sadly. Well, I mean, hell, we still don't even have the JFK files that Pam Bondi supposedly has, and that's 70 plus years old.
Yeah.
So now, unfortunately, whether we're talking Jan 6, or that. It's and the desire of seeing people in shackles or worse, sadly, I don't think will happen, unfortunately.
I hear you. I hear you. Well, he then went on to win the election, and many of us have been concerned about his own personal security and all the rest. And it's then the classic thing. It's appointing people around you that that you can trust, because then the head of the security, she then had to resign. And also, did you notice at that time and think, well, how, with the Secret Service, how big were these people? What did you have time to? I should think, no, you were getting down without having time to observe what size they were, how many
Oh,
men were there, how
no, I
many women
totally
there.
did. No, I
Right.
totally noticed.
Your
Yeah,
comments, go on.
they were chicks. I'm like, they were all like half his height,
Right,
and they were women. I'm like,
right.
what the heck? That's totally bananas.
Mm,
There was, I think, one guy that was maybe like within his height range, but yeah, that totally. I'm like, this, this is part of the problem. Why are there female Secret Service people doing this job anyway? I mean, it was clearly not, to me, what would be taken seriously, for
So
sure.
are we going to go to one of our sort of first three letters, which is not FBI, but is actually DEI? So
Exactly.
is this
Yep.
these are DEI hires, and of
It's
course,
total 100%.
the head of the Secret Service was an O Biden appointee.
Yep.
I just underlined the O there, was an O Biden appointee, and then all the discussion, of course, blew up about this whole thing of whether these people are up to the job, because President Trump is a tall guy. He is a big guy. I'm not being rude to him. There is a big surface area to protect. He
Right.
he is a big man. And the other thing he ducked down. The other thing is that if he was violently pushed over, by Secret Service or whatever, then to protect him, then they're trying to protect him from other injuries as well, just in that particular act. So how, because DEI is then relevant to what I want to try and pack in and us discuss. So how did that roll out when we're seeing pictures of Secret Service not being able to holster their gun properly and all this kind of thing, and you're wondering, are they actually concentrating on the job, or have they gone into frozen mode? And I'm not being sarcastic. That's the last thing I would want to be in while bullets are flying around. But what's your reaction to that? What was your take on all of that again?
Oh, what was my take on seeing
This hot,
a short woman
yeah,
fumbling?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's the state of, and this is part of where I get into my wheelhouse of concern of the fall of Western civilization. This is like,
right,
this is just, you had planes falling from the sky, inept women who are supposedly trying to protect the president. So many examples of female cops who take out what they think's their taser gun, and it's a real gun, and they shoot somebody. On and on and on, and it's, yeah. Sorry, yeah, it might tick off some people, but to me, there are some roles women shouldn't be in. Those are some of them: cops, Secret Service, etc. And just DEI in general, and identity politics, and trying to placate and kowtow to 0.01% of the population because of equality or some such nonsense. Yep. Sorry, there are things and people that are the reason why Western civilization is built. and it's built on the shoulders of white men. And let's not fool ourselves. Bridges, skyscrapers, the Hoover Dam, I mean, Roman civilization. I mean, yeah, it's this trying to put ill-equipped people in positions that they shouldn't be in to get some brownie points is part of the reason why I think we're having so much problem maintaining society.
I hear you, and I do agree with you, and I'm not really bothered how unpopular that makes us, because that is a reality.
Yep. It's stuff no one wants to talk about because we're afraid of being canceled or labeled something. Well, as you know, I got canceled, so I don't give a crap anymore. You know what I mean? It's like, a lot of us used to be like this, like, oh, I'm worried now. I'm like, not worried anymore. Don't care. The guilt meter is broken.
Right.
Gone.
How long did it take you to work through that guilt meter, Joel? That's a very serious question.
Yeah,
you raise an important issue.
No, it took. I mean, it wasn't overnight, or I mean, it wasn't like instantaneous or whatever. I mean, I was educated in the American public educational system, so I went through K through 12, like a lot of us here, and luckily I'm a Gen Xer, so I kind of got the last what is probably the last vestiges of somewhat decent educational system. I had a physics class in 10th grade and learned American physics. That's unheard of. I had cursive writing lessons, which doesn't happen anymore. So even though I was the probably last generation to have that, there was, I mean, especially in the 80s and 90s, it was a big thing of, about, be colorblind and this, that, and the other. And so it's been a journey. I mean, I didn't go down the rabbit hole until about 2006 with, and the Fed and Ron Paul movement and Tea Party movement. That's when I started waking up. I used to be a lefty lib. I used to be an artsy fartsy Democrat. I voted for my first election was Bill Clinton twice. So it took a while. So 2006 and then, and then on. And then I was in Seattle during the first Trump I was in Seattle from 2003 to 2021. So it was probably the 2016 election when he first won that things started really, for me, ramping up, going further in down that rabbit hole. And as Seattle through a 4-year temper tantrum, fires, riots, loots, I was there 30 minutes away from that Chaz Chop thing in Capitol Hill in Seattle, where the autonomous zone, where they took over a police station. Yes, the lefties took over a police station. The police left. They walked away and let it happen. The mayor didn't fight back. They took over and vandalized the police station. They quarantined it off. They had guns. People were not allowed in or out. You had to, I guess, be qualified by their standards to be allowed in or out. Some people died. I was 30 minutes away from that, a 30-minute drive. So yeah, that's really 2016 and on is when it really, and then I was in Seattle for the COVID lockdown, which COVID hit in America first in Washington State. So yeah, I saw it all. And that I guess the short answer to that is that's kind of what started me really going down that hole. And that's where on and on, the guilt meter started ticking down. But then especially, I would say 2021, the George Floyd riots, the summer of love, quote unquote, that started really ramping it. And then, all this stuff like, even recently with what's his face, Carmelo, or with Austin Metcalf, that stabbing and him getting, Carmelo getting all that money for killing a white kid. all these things have just kept on ratcheting it, over for me. So, yeah.
Going back to the mayor of Seattle, what can you remember what his name was?
Oh, it was a female. So, there's another,
Oh, right. I thought,
yeah.
right. I do apologize because I thought the male, because there was all this sort of going in and, oh, we got to negotiate with these lovely people that are turning this part of our city into utter chaos, because it reminds me of Kamala Harris's vice presidential candidate, Walsh, and his wife going, when you reference George Floyd, and going, oh, we kept the windows open because so we could smell burning tires coming through the house. I mean, you and I just sit there and go, so basically you support violence and burning your country down,
Yep.
and think that this is the right way to behave. Well, on a personal level, no, I don't, and nor do you, and nor do many other people. I mean, the whole discussion of George, we could have hours on George Floyd. There's a fantastic documentary that came out about that, which looking at the events of what happened, and really push back against the propaganda narrative. And when you look into George Floyd as an individual, you then discover things about him that were not talked about at that time.
Right.
And it's absolutely fascinating, again, as we're discussing that whole thing of propaganda, in that sense of how literally around the world things erupted in the way that they did, and they certainly erupted over here in marches, etc., and how that played out. Joel, how were you cancelled? How, if you reference that you were cancelled, how were you cancelled? What actually happened to you?
Yeah, so 20 years. I did 18 in Seattle and 2 here in the where I currently am at. At the big tech, let's put it this way, we insiders usually call it the fruit stand for those who aren't aware. So I worked for the fruit stand, which I love their stuff, and I still, I'm not letting that sour me. There's obviously a lot of reasons: the quality, the security, and people would look at me. I'm like, well, I mean, the reality is, any Silicon Valley big tech, they're all like it. I mean, Amazon, Google, etc. They're all like this. They all have these same woke DEI, LGBT policies. So, you're just because this one fired me for being who I am, it would have happened anywhere. And it's like, okay, well, if I had to disavow using any woke technology, then I'd have no technology at all.
Right.
So yeah, 20 years total, and I got a whole time excellent employee, excellent marks, high quality. Working there, you do have to be at a high standard, high volume, high velocity. Great there, great peer relations. Nobody knew, I mean, I didn't start my journey becoming a Christian conservative until like I said, until 2006 at the beginnings, all the way to now. So
what was the key? Sorry, what was the key thing again in regard to 2006? I know you'd made reference to the incredible Ron Paul, truth is treason in the Empire of Lies comment, and you've made a reference to that. You made a reference to the Tea Party. What was that? What was the catalyst at that point as well?
Believe it or not, it was the Loose Change second edition documentary. And the Zeitgeist movie, the first Zeitgeist from the first of the trilogy. And I know Zeitgeist and the first, or those three movies have a kind of they're new agey and not really like, I know there's some problems with it, but seeing the first Zeitgeist movie and seeing Loose Change second edition, which is all about 9/11 being an inside job and doing a great job of detailing that out. Those were the things that really started me to, question reality and woke me up, as it were, to the way of things.
Did that mean at that point that you lost friends and you gained other friends? What?
Gained others, didn't lose, because I kept it to myself. Again, I've always been, do the right thing, be a good person. Believe it or not, this is again like a funny. We're so the right is so lamented about being this, that, or the other, negative wise. But the reality is we're not. They're good people. We just maybe have opinions that, well, we definitely not maybe. We definitely have opinions that go against the narrative, the establishment and the leftist narrative. But in the end, we're good people. We're not a-holes who are I kept that part of me, like if there were people that I encountered in Seattle who were open to the idea of not being a total leftist, I let some of it out, and we found, oh yeah, you're cool, okay, let's talk. And so there were people I met knew that part of me, but for the most part, or for the rest of it though, no one else did. I went to work, I did my job well, I didn't mix any politics or personal life at work. I was there to take care of people. I was there to either sell them, train them. I was a trainer for a long time, to educate, and I also was ended in my last 2 years as a repair technician. So I was there to mend a relationship or educate or whatever and help people. So no one ever knew my employees. I'm always a glass half full kind of guy. Everybody that worked with me had no idea, and they had fun with me because I was there to be lighthearted and a positive guy, so, and I am still like that personally. But so they had no idea. And I did, get some friends who were conservative or not like, the stereotypical lefty in Seattle. So both of those grew and maintained.
So what led you to being cancelled? What did people think took objection to? What did they then discover in their eyes?
Well, somehow, some way, I don't know who. I don't know if it was a fellow employee, or I think personally it was an outsider. There are people that look to cancel and dox people.
Right.
We know it. People get swatted. People get this, that, and the other. So on my day off here, back in where I'm at now, I get a call on my day off from my store manager, and he was like, "Is this you?" He had some screenshots. Basically, an employee had screenshots. I had a Twitter account and an Instagram account that were anonymous, that were not my name. I stupidly had a photo of myself on one of them. So he had screenshots. He sent them to me. He's like, "Is this you?" At that point, I knew it was over. I knew like that somebody knew some of my posts, which are very conservative, very right wing, very dissonant alt-right, etc. So I at the time lied because I knew if I said I was going to be probably immediately fired or whatever. So I was like, no, that's not me, and then so he suggested I stay home, and they were going to conduct a investigation with HR, an internal investigation. And that led to a 5-month paid leave to stay home while they investigated. And
Wow.
They were using terms like, "This is unprecedented," which is kind of funny because I know I worked at probably a total of about 6 stores during my career there, and all of them had at least 1 or 2 conservatives working there. Obviously, you wouldn't know it because we all had to basically bite our tongue because it's a heavily left leaning organization that hires mostly left leaning people. So there's always 1 or 2 of them in every store that, we just keep quiet, which is what I did too, because again, no one knew. It wasn't until somebody found out my 2 anonymous accounts. And, again, if I hadn't have had a photo of me in one of them, I probably wouldn't have had that conversation with them. So 2 months into it, the manager calls and is like, well, there's, we haven't heard back. And it's like, what do you want to do? Like, I knew he was fishing for, like, they were hoping I would quit. Like, game the chicken, you got to flinch. So I know he was hoping I would just quit. And I'm like, I gave him just very vague, like, I don't know. And I knew once the staff knew, what my opinions were or whatever, I knew it became an environment if it's us or him. Like, I know, like, what happened was, like, because I opened up a case with the EEOC, the Equal Employment Opportunity,
right. Yep.
Whatever, C part of it, and they investigated heavily. And they interviewed, and I have the PDF of their findings, and it was basically that the consensus was all of them felt unsafe with me working there, which is hilarious because the day before I got the call, they were all like, hey, I'll see you Monday.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Like, hey.
Yeah.
And it came from, hey, I'll see you Monday to I don't feel safe working with him. So I know that's what happened. He's this, that, and the other. He's racist, sexist, homophobic, whatever, because of these not left opinions. So anyway, the manager said, like, this is unprecedented. So I went to look at, like, the ACLJ and other organizations that do cases for people in a situation like me getting essentially canceled. Unfortunately, you find out the reality of things, that since it's a public company, they can do whatever they want. Their First Amendment doesn't apply unless you're a federal employee. That I live in a not right to work state. So basically, you can get fired for no reason, and
Right.
So everything was like SOL, essentially, which was fine. Ultimately I wasn't, I knew in my head, I was like, well, this is it. It's, it's over. I'm like, and at that point, I had been there 20 years. I was ready to move on anyway. I'd done basically every role there, and I did it well. And I had the thing on my resume that looks good. So I'm like, okay, in my head, I'm like, and everything is meant to be, kind of a thing. Like, I left my hometown to go to Seattle for, like, reasons like I lost my girl, I got laid off, all these things. So that was meant to be, to go there. And likewise, I was meant to come back. The cost of living was out the roof in Seattle. The politics were off the roof in Seattle. So there's no way I could stay there either. So everything happens for a reason. So it was like, this was yet another door closing and another door opening. And I took it. And I say that too, being blessed with that, I have a very supportive family out here who, my mother, especially, has got my back and is, supportive and everything. And, blessed with, I did 20 years with stock from that company, and not enough to retire, but definitely enough to, let me take time away to regroup and rebuild. And again, thanks to, just again, going with letting a lot of this go and in God's hands, it's like, it's led me to meet, various people, including Robert, including you, going to CPAC, making connections, helping people out, using my talents. Because that was the other thing, working at where I did, you couldn't do anything. Like, it was the golden handcuffs. You couldn't freelance. You couldn't utilize any of their tech to help people out or whatever. Everything was a conflict of interest. So
I hear you.
this has been nice. I've been able to help use my lefty talents to help the right wing, which all too often has a messaging problem and a imaging problem, or the fact that the right is not really taking the arts very seriously. Like Hollywood and movies and music, it's not ever really viewed it, I think, as a serious thing. And as obviously, as you and I know, you're in the biz too, is mass media and culture matters. Like, from mass media and movies and music, culture,
Absolutely.
is downhill from that. And it's like they've mastered it. Holly Weird is Hollywood for a reason, and it's like they definitely know how to use it. So we need to get a lot of that back.
Yes, and of course in the 50s, with the whole concern of Reds under the bed, and then the left wing orientation within Hollywood. And there's a dear friend of mine who was very much in that area and grew up in that within Hollywood. Talked about producers, directors, etc., execs. They'd walk around and they'd have the Soviet Union, hammer and sickle.
McCarthy was right.
McCarthy was absolutely
right.
I was searching for his name, and thank you, Joel. McCarthy was absolutely right. In the last sort of few minutes, I mean, one of the wonderful things about sitting down and having this conversation with you is that people have got to, they most probably know, but people have got to realize this is happening all the way around the world, and I have experienced that myself. So we fight back in different ways, and we have to. It's really interesting, isn't it? Diversity, equity, and inclusion actually for us with our views means exclusion. We go for this until we are reminded that there are only two sexes, and male and female, and all this, and the women's spaces need to be protected, etc. So when we come out with these views, we are then excluded, and meritocracy is that's the American dream. Everyone can, and traditionally in the past, everyone can achieve if you work hard and get going. You can do that, but it's this whole thing of no, we're just going to employ them because their face fits. One of the inspiring things of having this conversation with you, Joe, and I won't give too much away as I am halfway through a script, in regard to referencing this whole issue, and we will use drama to fight back. Joe, in the last sort of, as I say, couple of minutes, last minute, we have all met that, as you said, we thought you were a really nice guy, we agree with you, but now we find out that you have these opinions, and they can't jump that, can they? They just can't jump that and go, well, hold on a minute, because I've actually said that the orange man is not bad, you now are saying that I'm bad.
Right.
But as you said, the day before, they were all going, high five, see you tomorrow.
Right.
Joel, how do we, sort of 30 seconds in a way, how do we turn this around, in your opinion? What do we need? Yeah, I know. The $1 million question that we don't have time to answer this time. You've alluded to the culture war that's going on, but how do we turn this around? You've alluded to education, I think, as well.
Yeah, I mean, well, okay, so there's a black pill and a white pill I could take or go down. I would say, I guess the nice sounding white pills are homeschool your if I can talk. Homeschool your children.
Yeah.
Go with either Christian schooling, Montessori schools or private schools or homeschool. Ideally, to me, homeschool, because there are networks. A lot of people think, oh, I can't afford that, or I have to work or whatever. Believe it or not, in your area, there are networks of people who homeschool.
Yeah.
So you can have a couple people homeschool a large room of children. So return to Christian values.
Yeah.
Look to the Bible, look to Christianity, look to homeschool your children, pull them out of any, try to pull away from any state sponsored, whatever it happens to be.
Yeah.
Bigger picture stuff. I mean, we got to close borders. We got to kick people out. There are cultures are not compatible. The biggest eye-opening things I've been awakened to is the naivete of Christianity and the naivete of libertarians. This idea that everybody's a cog in a machine, that it doesn't matter who they are, they can be fit into the cog by giving them money or by giving them the Bible. I know this, again, might be controversial to a lot of people, but I'm like, there are some cultures that are different. There are some cultures that are incompatible. There are people that are incompatible. I'm okay with that. Like, it's called, you go there, I go here. It's like, to me, spreading the Bible everywhere and just giving people democracy or money will solve the problems of the world. I mean, I'm a believer in capitalism. I am a believer in meritocracy, but again, their borders are there for a reason, and cultures are different.
I hear you. Yeah. I hear you in nation states. Joel, we've got to do this again because I actually want to continue that conversation, and I'm just trying to keep it under an hour. I just want to thank you so much for your time. I do apologize. I am going to go away and practice saying your surname. I also apologize to my audience for not being totally on my game in regard to tech at the beginning. And as you know, I had a few tech issues before, which are now solved, but that is no excuse. So I just apologize to everyone. Joe, I'm going to play us out. Please stay with me and I'll say goodbye to you over the other side. But I just want to thank you so much for a wonderful conversation, which I would really love to continue because we are involved in this culture war. Thank you, my friend. Take care.
Yes.